Yeah, it's like that's what we all need to try different things and figure out what works for us. Um, okay, so I don't know. Like the temptation is to talk about too much here. 'Cause I don't want to put everything in like. One thing that's not in here to probably put up in here is legally in the U.S. if you pay someone to edit your videos, they own some of the copyright to that video.
Okay.
And so it's important to have them sign a contract. So let me put that under pre-hire probably.
Did we do that?
Yeah, I sent you one. You signed it. So that'll apply mostly to U.S. people. It varies from country to country, obviously. Okay. Oh, I think we're live right now. Hello, everybody.
Oh,
I didn't even notice that we were live. We were just sitting here chatting. Hello, everybody. All right, let's start this over again, as if I from the very beginning, I was like, wow, the chat picked up some pace there. I'm like, why? And I look at the clock. It's like, oh, 2:01. We're live. So good to see you guys. Let me start at the beginning so I can record this like a normal podcast. Hello, creators. How are you guys? It's great to hang out with you again for another Video Creators podcast episode. Also, live stream here at youtube.com/video creators. And today we got a great topic that I want to talk with you guys about. There's a very common question that I'm getting more and more and more from creators is like, how do I actually work with a video editor? They're like, I spend a lot of time editing videos, and I spend a lot of time just putting these pieces of content together, and it's like something someone else could be doing. So we're going to talk about that, but also some of you guys are like, I want an editor, but I don't know how to let go. Like, this is my baby. How do I let go of something that is so intimate, so close, and no one else can edit the way I edit and that kind of stuff? So we're going to talk about all of that, and you get to actually meet my video editor. We just figured it out since 2015. So this is Julia. Hey, Julia, how are you?
hello, hello. I'm not too bad, thank you.
It's great to have you. Yeah, this is fun. I told Julia before we got started, I was like, this is going to be fun for me because, I mean, we have guests on here occasionally, but I've known Julia like in YouTube years, it's been a long time. So 2015, so 4 years together. Is that right? Even
Yeah.
kind of, yeah, something like that. Yeah. So, Julia, tell us about yourself because I'm glad you're here to give us some input. But tell us a little bit about your story and how you got started with editing videos. What was your very first video?
Okay, so my first video, I had to think about this for a second, but it was in high school. So we had a project. I don't even remember what the subject was, but we had a couple of subjects on technology and stuff. It wasn't as common then at the time. I mean, that's already like well over 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
So
Still
we
on
got
VHS.
yeah, we got these cameras with the little tapes and that, and it was actually quite difficult to get that off that, and you had to really know what you're doing. So it was the project we got. The assignment was to just make some video, anything, and my friends and I we decided to make like a silent film, like an old school silent film with the little cards in between, and so it was just this really simple story of a couple meeting, and there was a witch, and the witch wanted to be with the boy, and so she turned the girl into this rabbit, and we used really simple cutting sort of effects to achieve that, and it was so much fun. And editing that, it was really what put me on the path to wanting to edit video because I felt so powerful doing that, more than the filming and more than because I was in the video as well. But I really, really loved cutting it. So after school.
I was going to say, is that still available online or anywhere? Or not?
Yes, it is. It is. I
Oh,
can
I'd love
send
to
you the
see
link
that.
if you want.
Yeah, that would be fun.
I'll send it to you. I'll have to find it, but yeah,
That's fine.
it's
Yeah.
somewhere on YouTube. So yeah, after school, I ended up studying. I studied media technology and design and that sort of stuff, and did my own freelance projects very, very soon after that, and eventually came to start my own business.
Yeah. Well, you skipped a lot in there. You went to a lot of school and education for this. PhD now, is that right?
Yeah, that's right.
Look at you.
Uh,
Yeah. Tell us about that. A PhD in
uh,
digital design or something? Is that right? Or
yeah,
close?
pretty much. So I did my bachelor's, my undergrad in Austria, and I ended up going to Australia. I did a master's in digital design there with focus on motion graphics.
Hmm.
And I kind of stumbled into doing a PhD because I was really involved with, yeah, the university in general. I was just really interested in it, and I had a lot of ideas and took on a lot of ideas as well. So my research project was on experimental editing techniques and coming up with a couple of algorithms, creative algorithms, not like efficiency algorithms,
Right.
on how to edit differently.
Yeah. So if anyone should be leading this, it should be you right here. Like I should just be like, she's got the PhD in digital design in terms of editing and producing video content. You should listen to Julia here. And so I feel privileged and honored that she's spent so much time editing my videos and making them way better than they would have been if I was still editing, guys. And I think that's probably what a lot of you guys want, not just to free up time, but also to have a better product at the end that gets more watch time and higher engagement and more views because someone's taking not just what you've learned to do, but taking that and then taking it to the next level. And so Julia certainly introduced a lot of that into my content. And so whenever you see one of my videos, it's her work that you're seeing. And now we get to have this conversation on a different level because now your studio, Julia, has been growing as clientele, and now you are hiring video editors as well. So tell us about what that looks like for you and your business. What happened there? How does that work?
Well, in my case, I have one full-time employee now since May. So she is actually doing most of the video creators' videos now, and we do it together, but she does a bulk of the editing at this point. So should I talk about how that started, or?
Yeah, talk about how you found her, and then so we want to talk with you guys here about how do you find someone, and then how do you hire them, and how do you work with them. And just like normal, Laura, our producers in the chat, she's part of the production team with Julia and myself here at Video Creators. So Laura will be taking your questions, putting them in front of us, and we will answer as many of them as we can here in a little bit. But yeah, tell us, how do you go about finding like someone like Leah and other people on your team?
Okay, well, in case of Leah, I was looking for someone to just do a couple of hours. So in my case, I really wanted someone with me here as well, that I could work with directly in person. So I advertised on my old university, my Austrian university's job platform, because I know that they have a lot of good people there, and I know in that area they're quite good. So I think most universities have job platforms like that. And I also advertised the job on a sort of public platform that's mainly targeted at university students as well, because it was only like 5 hours a week that I sort of defined the position as. And I also advertised it for freelancers as well, but it's easier to advertise for like proper employment for some reason. So Leah actually found both of those ads, she told me later on, and I interviewed a couple of people. But first of all, her reply or her application was kind of the most excited, and I could already see we were of a
Yeah.
similar kind of crazy.
Yeah.
And then when we met, that sort of confirmed, and I just felt that connection. And all the people I interviewed had a similar level of skill and qualification, just sort of in different focusing areas. But I knew that it wasn't going to be, she wouldn't be able to do the job the way that I did it right away. But I knew that she had a certain level of skill and excitement and interest in it. And so, yeah, I tried it. I tried it earlier with a freelancer because I thought that would make me, give me more flexibility in that. I didn't really want to employ someone properly, but it came down to a personality thing. I just felt so much more comfortable with her, and that's what we did. And we upped her hours to 10 and then 16 and now full time.
Yeah, I went to a couple local universities here in Cincinnati when I was looking for an editor. And unfortunately for me, all the applications and media reels and things I got were pretty weak. And I was like, this looks like something I would watch if I was stuck doing like a CPR recertification or something, like a really bad DVD. And so it's like this, like, what are they teaching people in these classes these days? Like, I can't use this. And so that's when I then went to a couple other places, here in the US. I went to Craigslist, thumbtack.com, just up my personal network on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and things like that. I think I even sent an email out to my email list as well, which is usually where I like to start when I'm hiring someone who's already in our community and knows what we're about and things like that. But so if you guys are looking for someone to hire, any of those places could work. But the place I found Julia was actually at a place called upwork.com. So work, WORK.com. And it's a site where you can find lots of freelancers. And I found Julia on there. How did that go? I think what happened, Julia, was that I listed a job posting there. And one of the things I do when I list job postings there is I usually add like something hidden in the middle of a paragraph, like something I want someone to do to see if they're actually going to pay attention to detail or just mass apply to whoever looks like they have a title that might match what they want to do. And you were one of the few people who actually paid attention to detail, which I think was start your cover letter with how many subscribers my channel currently has.
It was views, I think,
views?
Or something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so you need to do a little bit more digging to find that number. And so you did it. You started your cover letter with that number. And I'm like, okay, she actually read this. She didn't just like mass apply. And then I think I gave you like one project. Is that right? I think that's how. Like, we didn't go from.
I know what our first video was.
Which one?
It was this interview. I can't remember. With two YouTubers.
Okay.
I think they had a family blog.
Okay.
I can find it.
That's
I
okay.
can't think
That's
of
all right.
who it was, but I know the video.
Well, what I did was what I normally do is I'll give the same project to like 3 or 4 different people, and then I will just kind of see what kind of work they do, how do they add their own creative energy into it, how do they communicate, what does it look like at the end, how much feedback do they need, and things like that. And Julia came out on top of all the trials that I did with a few different people. Now, I think there's a few things you guys should consider when you are looking to hire someone. Number one mistake I think a lot of people make is they just look for the cheapest editor on an hourly rate. So I tried someone who was $15 an hour, and this was my normal experience with people around that rate, was that it would be about 6 rounds of revisions and a lot of attention from me, and they would take like 12 hours to edit it. And then at the end, it would still just kind of be okay. Whereas with someone like Julia, whose rate is much higher, or you go to someone like her who's like around the $70 US dollar an hour range. I think Julia did it like in an hour and a half, and it was like perfect the first time. And I was like, oh, so pay someone $15 for 12 hours and a bunch of revisions, or, $70 an hour for, or I don't even know what your rate is actually, to be honest. We just pay it, but like something that's higher and it's like an hour and a half. And
I should remember that.
That's not a quote, by the way, $70 per hour. She could be 120 or something. It'd still be worth it. But someone who's a higher rate will usually is more proficient. And so the video at the end of the day is still cheaper. And from the amount of time it takes from you and the quality of the work and just the actual price is cheaper to get someone who does it faster at a higher rate than someone who's a lot slower at a lower rate. So you can't just look at the pay rate and be like, oh, that person's cheaper, I'll go with them. Do you have anything else you want to say about that point, Julia, in terms of pay rates and
No, I think it is that straightforward. I mean, you might, if you're lucky, you might get, students who are really, really good for a really cheap rate. But even then, it probably won't stay that way because they can't afford that in the long term.
Right.
Especially if they're good, they can also ask for more in time. But yeah, generally that's it. If someone offers cheap rates in the long term, you got to ask yourself why. It's probably not because they're that good or they do that good of a job with it.
Yeah. So, and someone who's charging more is probably gonna be around for a lot longer too. And you don't want to keep, whenever there's turnover and you got like a new editor every other month, like that's not saving you any time. So for me, when I hired my first editor, some of you guys have heard this story, but I think it's important to share because it makes this point about why you should hire an editor in the first place. I think I had hired an accountant already, but other than that, I think you were the next person on my team, Julia, if I remember correctly. Do you know if that's true or not? I think you were.
I think so.
Yeah. I think you had an accountant and then you. And so at that time, and prior to Julia, I had a different editor. And I said, hey, man, like, you need a job. I need an editor. And I said, I'm going to take $3,000 from my savings account because I didn't have any other money. I was literally like spinning 10 plates on 10 fingers plus some toes. And I couldn't let any of those plates fall because if I did, that would be like a big revenue hit and I couldn't afford to lose anymore. But I also knew that I was completely maxed out and I had no additional time that I could spend on my business to actually grow it and build this to a more sustainable level without me feeling stressed out so much all the time. And so I said, I'm taking $30,000 out of my personal savings. And I said to this editor guy, I said, this is for you for the next 3 months if you edit my videos. And so at the end of 3 months, my goal is to make $9,000 with the time that you freed up for me for this $3,000. I said, if I can make $9,000 by paying you $3,000, I'm like, with that extra time, I was like, this math works. Let's keep it going. So he said, sure, we're on track together. And so I quickly learned something though. At the end of the first month that he was working with me, instead of making $9,000 with that freed up time, instead I made $15,000 just in the first month with that freed up time. And I was like, oh my gosh, like mind blown. I learned a very important lesson. If you guys have read the book, which you should read if you're going to hire an editor, you should definitely read it. It's called E-Myth. And he says in there, like, you need to work on your business, not in your business. And I learned that was like a big epiphany moment I had at that time. And then I hired someone to start doing admin at that point and started scaling to what I think we're a team of 10 people now today at Video Creators. So working on your business, not in your business, is really important for growing this. And so making sure that you are focused on not just like doing everything, but having a team of people around you can really help you grow this further and faster than you otherwise could. So I think that's how I got first editor. And then Julia came a little bit later after that. And we've been working together almost ever since. And so there's a couple of things I think you should do before you hire. And I'd like to hear what you think about this, Julia, someone who has hired an editor as well as being an editor. So you get like both perspectives, which is great. One is I find that creators have a hard time letting go of their creativity. How do you address that with someone who might come to you and be like, hey, I want someone to edit this, but you can't do it the way I do it, or no one else can do it the way I do it. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's a tricky question because when people approach me, they're kind of ready.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, the thing is, like for myself, as from my own perspective, when I knew I had to let go my own work. I mean, it's work that I do for other people, but every project I do is still my baby as well, and my whole mind goes in that as well. But I guess when you get to that point, you have to ask yourself, what is your primary goal? Do you want to grow your business? Do you want to do other things as well? You need to let go. You need to find the right person that you trust, that they won't get it at first. And we didn't, like, we had to develop, our practice together as well. But if you find someone that you can trust, then it's easier to let go, and you still communicate. It's not like you have no control anymore. But in time, you're willing. Once you see that they're doing a good job, you're willing to let go more and more. And then it's even amazing because they'll do things that make you go, oh, I never thought of that, or that they can even inspire you in return as well. So once you find that person, I think it gets easier, but it's important to find someone that you can trust.
Yeah. And I think for me, part of it was realizing after reading that book, E-Myth, that anything can be reproducible if you put a good system in place that reproduces results. And so that's basically what my whole business has been revolving around. Like, how do we reproduce results on YouTube for people, for any context, any genre, any audience, any creator? What is a system that just works, and how do we put that together? And then like, well, how do I then put a system together that teaches someone to teach that system, right? And then, so like a lot of these like top creators, like one friend of mine, Grant Thompson from the King of Random, he's got like 12 something million subscribers, and he hasn't edited his videos for a long time. Last year, he told me, he's like, Tim, same book, E-Myth, which sounds like it's turning into a commercial for E-Myth, but I had him read that, and he said, I put together like my editing process, and he's like, Tim, it's at the point now where it's 84 pages long or something like that. And he's like, if anyone follows the checklist with my raw footage and knows the mechanics of how to edit, he's like, I get a video that's back 100% every time if they just follow this process. And other people have done that too. Like I know, like Jeremy from J House Vlogs, he knows exactly how many seconds he can talk before people leave the video, how many seconds his wife can talk before people leave, how many seconds he can go without showing some of their kids before people leave, the impact of different types of music and how long and what genre. Like he knows all of that. It's down to like a science. And I think most of us as creators, one, don't even pay that much attention to our retention graphs to know how that works. But then two, we do have a system that we edit by. It's just like we haven't identified it yet. And so what I did, I think with you, Julia, is one of the easiest ways maybe you guys can do this to get someone going is just screen capture yourself editing a few of your videos and just explaining what you're doing. Like, okay, I'm going to cut here. I'm going to cut this part out because I don't like that part, or see how I did that mistake, and you're just kind of already explaining the system that you know in your head. Now you're just identifying it out loud about why you make this choice to cut here and edit that way or that, or add this there. And so I think what I did is I sent Julia, I think I sent you like 3-ish, if I'm not mistaken, 3, and they were long. They were like just full, raw, uncut, like hour and a half, 2-hour screen captures of me editing my raw footage. And I said, here, watch this, kind of get an idea of my process. And I said, if I remember correctly, it was, can you reproduce a video that looks like the way I edit it? And then, of course, you did. And then it was like, well, Tim, I can do way better than that. And I was like, oh, good, let's do that.
I did not say that.
No, you wouldn't have said that, but you were thinking it. And I could tell that you could do better. And now they are way better. And so if you guys hire someone, like, don't hire someone who's just going to do only as good as you. Hire someone who's going to take it to the next level for you. And but you really do need to put that process in place, and about how do you edit so that when you hand it off, you're just not like, good luck, but you have some guidelines and maybe some principles that you follow for how you edit. And that might make it a little bit easier to let go. So do you have any input on that, Julia? No,
I think you covered it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. The other thing to consider, and then I want to take you through a hiring process and our workflow real quick, and then jump into your questions because you guys got a lot of good ones here. So we'll hit those in a second. But one thing to consider too before you hire is that in the US, someone who edits a video is entitled to some of the copyright legally to that video because they've added their own creativity to it and things. So it's important that you have a work for hire contract with that person so that you retain the copyright control of that piece of work. And I don't think anyone wants to get into an issue where there's a copyright battle with their editor or anything like that. So I don't anticipate that would ever be a case, but it's just good that you would just have the necessary paperwork in place in case you need to. So you can get a lawyer to write up a contract for you. Or I think if you go through Upwork, Julia, is everything by default a work for hire, I think?
I'm not sure. I actually realized that like once my business developed, I had a hard time using Upwork because it was mainly targeted towards American, freelancers and American business. And I had a lot of trouble using it here because there were a couple of things that were just difficult.
And the contracts?
Tax-wise, the types of invoice that it generated and things like that. So that's why at the time I didn't end up using it anymore.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. But just get a contract. I think if you're in the US or Canada or something like that, it should automatically be kind of covered for you in there, but you might want to just double check on that. So let's talk about how we hire. We already mentioned that I recommend like get 3 people at least after you've kind of got the whole, like all the people sent you their info from wherever you reached out to. Start with 3 and give them each the same project, and then do like after you can do more than one project with them. Sometimes I'll give them all like the same project and they'll be clear like, oh wow, that person's not going to work, but these other 2 are close. I have a hard time deciding. So then I'll give them each another project, and I do give them the same project. It feels like a waste of money, but I found it's definitely worth it because then it's easier to compare the work side by side. If you give them each the same footage and say, give me back this video, and seeing how each person puts their own creativity on it and things like that is important. And then I pick one, and then I do a 3-month trial for them. Or like I tell them right up front, we're going to commit to 3 months, because what happens is, and it doesn't have to be 3 months. It could be like 5 videos or something. You just want to commit for longer than like 1 or 2 videos, because I find that they're going to take more of your time in the beginning just because there's going to be a lot of back and forth and more revisions, more rounds of communication. But after doing it for 4, 5, 6 videos, by the time you get to like video 6, 7, or 8, maybe even sooner, like you should like they should understand like some of these things, and at least be getting the basics, and the final things you're talking about now are like the final 5% of things. But if you only do like 1 or 2 videos, you're like, oh, this isn't working, and you bail too quick because you didn't give it enough time to actually work and to work through some of that stuff on the front end. So do at least 6 videos, I'd say, or 3 months or something like that, and just commit to working out the communication process and the editing back and forth and revisions and things like that. And at the end of like 6 videos, if nothing's improved, then you should bow out. But any thoughts on that, Julia?
Yeah, I think patience is definitely a thing. It was I got scared at the start when I first handed my first videos to someone else, because I was like, oh my God, this is like, there's so much wrong with this. But you need to stay calm and have some patience and give the other person a chance to adapt to what you're doing. It doesn't mean that they're bad at what they're doing. It just means they're not used to the way that you want it done in this case. So good communication, I think, is definitely key, and giving it a bit of time.
Yeah, sometimes you're just, as a creator, you're not good at communicating it yet. Like, in your head what you're trying to say, but you haven't figured out how to articulate it to someone else. And so I think you just do need to give it some time. Just don't give up too quick. And then, commit to work with them. And our workflow, let's go through that real quick, Julia. So, and then we'll jump into Q&A here. So I get my ideas from a bunch of different places, but basically when I shoot the video, I upload the raw video footage to a folder in our shared Dropbox folder that Julia and I share. And so that syncs automatically to her computer. And I label it like the folder, the title of the video. And then I jump into Trello And in our Trello board, we have like a process that we move each card through. And so I create a new card for, and Trello, if you're not familiar, it's a project management system. So it works great. It's free. So
I love Trello. Definitely.
Yeah, my whole life is in there. And so then I'll make a new card with that title that matches the folder. I made it in Dropbox. And then I'll drop any notes in there, like here's what I'm thinking with this part or in that part, or here's the notes or the script I used to shoot this video, or here's links to make sure you have screenshots of this channel, and or if I'm doing an interview, here's their channel. We have permission to use clips from it as B-roll and things like that. Just any notes, I'll jump that on the card, and then I'll put that on Trello. And then from there, Julia and Laura, who's in the chat here, take over. You want to explain the rest of it, Julia?
Okay. Well, once we have the footage, once we start editing, we've got a couple of columns from where every time we start, I immediately pull the card to, I think it's, what is it called? Editing in progress, or like something like that. So you get a good overview of when I'm starting. And then once we have the first draft, again, it goes on another column. And so we go from, first draft to thumbnail design and final edits. And then you guys take it from there.
Well, Laura will go back and forth with you on like thumbnail ideas and title ideas and like crafting those, and she'll do any revisions for you. You upload it when the first draft is done. You upload it to frame.io, which is a website for collaboration, and drop any comments like, hey, this part's confusing, or that's not spelled right, or just like cut this part out, I think it's redundant, or whatever. Just, I find it extremely valuable to have more than my eyeballs on it. Like if I'm just editing and posting it, because other people catch things, or like I've been so close to this thing, editing it myself, that I don't realize how redundant something feels. So to have something like, or someone like Julia or Laura watch it and put input into it before it gets published is really valuable to me, because I trust their opinion better than mine, because like I'm too emotionally close to it, and they can be like, Tim, I'm bored, this part needs to go. I'm like, all right, take it out.
I experienced that as well with Leah now, because before, for quite a long time, it was just me editing your videos. But even now, having another person there, I feel like we already see so much more before we even give it to you guys now.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference, having more people look at it.
So we'll do the couple rounds of revisions on frame.io. Typically, Julia gets it pretty darn close, or her and her team, Leah, get it pretty darn close like on the first time. But if there's some tweaks, they're kind of like minor in nature. And so she'll upload those to frame.io, and then Laura will download the final, and then get the thumbnail that Julia creates on. She'll get that off of Trello, upload it all to YouTube, schedule it, end screens, end cards, everything. It gets published, and then once it gets published, I jump back in on it and we'll reply to comments that you guys leave on the video and stuff like that. Now, one thing we changed recently, and this is something that I've been trying to do for a long time, and Laura in the chat will confirm, and Julia even too, is I have this bad habit of jumping into the middle and messing things up. So like, I'm excited for the video, I want to see it, right? And so I'll jump in and I'll leave feedback, but then we've learned that like, well, then Laura's like, well, am I doing this or is Tim doing this? And then Julia's like, should I be waiting for Tim's final approval or Laura's final approval? So you just have to make the process clear. And whatever it is, it doesn't matter what your process is, just make sure that everyone's on the same page. I've opted to, after I shoot the video, to remove myself pretty much completely until it's published. And just because of my time and things like that. Yeah, Laura in the chat is saying confirmed in all caps. So whatever it is, just communication is going to be key there. So, and then we use Slack also as a team where Laura, Julia, and I can talk if we need to do more real time. And then we also have a once a month meeting on Zoom where we get together and just talk about what's coming up, what are we working on, any issues we need to talk through, or stuff like that. So, anything else you'd add to that, Julia, before we jump into Q&A?
Yeah. I think it's also necessary to consider that there's always challenges once you introduce new people, once you slightly change the process. Everyone's a bit different as well. So, but it's as you said, as long as you keep the process clear and you keep the communication open, I think that's pretty much all you need.
Yep. Cool. A couple good questions from you guys. Let's dive into them here. So Lord Gosen Gaming, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate it. It says, thanks so much for your vids. I learn a lot from you. You're welcome. Glad that you learn. Hopefully you're learning a lot right now too. Mike, hey man, from Haunted Road Media, says, when working with an editor, how do you release the reins of wanting to micromanage the creative process after you've been doing it yourself for so long? That's kind of what we were talking about. Do you have any other tips, Julia, for someone who's trying to let go?
I'm not sure. I think for most people that I know, once they get to that point, they know their goals, and then they are ready. If you're not ready, maybe you need a bit more time. I don't know.
I think for me, it was getting to a point where you're like, if I keep micromanaging this, why am I paying them? And for me, I felt like I was wasting, now I was spending time and money, whereas before I was just spending time. But if I'm going to pay someone to do this, then I need to spend that time doing something else that's going to generate revenue that will pay for me and them. And I understand that feeling completely, Mike, of wanting to be like, oh, but this is my video and it's so, important to me, and we get so emotionally attached to them and things. So I totally get it. But I would say if you could try to just like, okay, one video, I'm not gonna put input into it until it's done, and just leave it at that. And then there's some things like I've learned too that I could micromanage in terms of like, oh, let's nitpick like this half second here should be gone and that little graphic there or whatever. But at the end of the day, like having my team spend a lot more time make changes that aren't actually going to impact the value of the video. It's not going to make the video better. It's not going to perform better in search or discovery systems. It's not going to get more watch time or something because that little tweak that, maybe I notice because I'm so close to it, but no one else who's watching the video later is going to notice or care. And so like some of those things, you can just kind of let those go and be like, yep, approved, even though I could have nitpicked on it a lot more if I wanted to, but knowing that it would be pointless to do so.
I think it's a lot about questioning yourself as well and asking, what was their intention of editing it this way? And is that one thing that I can see now? It's, as you said, is it really that important? Or is it better to also trust the person that you're working with and letting them do their own thing because, you appreciate what they do?
Yeah. Totally. Feast and Farm Cooks ask, what kinds of questions should we ask a potential editor to make sure we are getting someone who is a good fit? That's a good question. What would you say, Julia? What should they ask?
That is a good question because
I can tell you where I start is kind of to your point is like I don't want someone who just knows the mechanics of editing. I want someone who, like, to be totally honest, just is passionate about what I'm passionate about, which is serving creators. And I think that first, when I put that job posting on Upwork that you responded to, Julia, a lot of it was, this is what I do with creators. This is why this is awesome. And so I usually want to, like, if you're a family vlogging channel that's all about like encouraging young moms, for example, then I want to know, like, is this person a young mom? Do they have children? Are they passionate about this? Or is it like a teenage boy who's like, I've never experienced what it's like to pull my hair out with, jelly dripping off my jeans and throw up over my shoulder or something. I don't know. It's like, I want them to feel emotionally passionate about the things that we're passionate about. And so a lot of those first questions are typically value oriented and like passion fit type of stuff.
For me, it was easy enough to see how good the editor is and, motion graphic designer, because I can see their portfolio or whatever. That's a big one, to actually see their previous work. You can already tell if they're good technically. And the rest for me was really a matter of personality, in that I wanted to know that, and I actually put this in my job ad as well. I said that I want someone who wants to grow with my business. It'll start with 5 hours, but I'm planning to grow the business. And I want someone who's excited about that as well, and who wants to do these videos, and who's able to, take criticism and to, see that as a good thing and not as a bad thing.
Yeah, personality makes a much bigger difference, I think, than actual skills, because skills can be learned, but personality is really hard to change. So I wanted to be
someone need a good basis, but because I tried with someone who didn't know like the software that well, and I realized I can't teach them everything. They need a good basis, but once they have that, they can grow.
Yeah, someone who's teachable and willing to learn and wants to challenge themselves. I'd much rather have that than someone who has all the mechanics of video editing down, but isn't like the type of person who's really passionate about what we're doing, or doesn't share some of our common values about this is about people and serving people first and doing it right and things like that. So Mary H. And by the way, I'm hitting up all the member questions. So I appreciate you guys who are members of the channel. So thank you. Trying to get through those here first. Mary says, hi, thank you so much for all your help. I have a question. How do you actually get your content to your editor? And we use a shared Dropbox folder for our stuff. You could use Google Drive if you want. A lot of people use that. I've just had more issues with that. And I've had no issues at all with Dropbox, even with syncing like weird it's like project files for Premiere. We use Premiere Pro. Well, she uses Premiere Pro and After Effects primarily. So I've had just some issues with Google Drive with non-standard types of files, and so Dropbox seems to work great.
Yeah. Brooklyn,
thank you for the super chat. I want to start creating cinematic vlogs, but I'm not sure if I should post them on my main channel, which is the music channel. Thoughts? Sorry, it's off topic. Yeah, it's a little off topic. I would pick the value proposition, like what's the main value you're trying to provide and what audience are you providing it to? And then if that is different than your main channel, then you should put it on a second channel. But if it's the same value for the same audience, then keep it on the same channel. Nothing to do crew. Is it possible to have an editor for DIY channels? Like not sure how they would know what parts to cut out. So hey, how would you handle that one, Julia? For some like a DIY channel is like, I know how to make this thing. How do you know as an editor what parts are important to keep in and what parts you can take out and stuff like that?
I'm not sure that it's different from other videos, but we don't have a DIY channel among our projects. But at the end of the day, with our videos as well, in time, I know what's important to you. It took us a bit of back and forth at the start, and you would say, maybe take this out or see if this is important, you can shorten it, but this is important, definitely leave that in. So it does take some instruction at the start, but I think if you've got someone good who gets you and, you have a good dynamic together, they'll understand. And I know there are editors who focus on certain subjects as well, and we do as well. We are more about sort of educational content, so I think it's a matter of learning, but I don't think it's that hard in particular.
I think I think you just need to communicate. Like here, like when you give your video editor your footage, to say, here are the main things to leave in. If you want to leave other stuff in, you can if you think it serves the video, but these are the main things to leave in. And just make sure you communicate it so that they know right up front. You
could give an outline of the most important points as well. I do that with some partners and clients. That every one of my clients is a bit different as well. Some people give me like almost like a storyboard, a numbered list of scenes, and we go from there. Or with others, we have a Google Sheet. But once you know each other, it's sort of it just works without all the instructions as well.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait, I'm getting some feedback from, I'm not sure where it's coming from, but.
Oh, is it?
It sounds like maybe air conditioner came on or something like that. I don't know.
I think my laptop's getting a bit hot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is.
Is that really loud? I can't actually hear it.
That's okay. Yeah, that's the same. That's okay. We'll keep going.
Sorry.
That's all right. Let's see. Alaskan Bachelor asks, we kind of answered this already, but what editing software do you prefer? And for you, Julia, that is...
Sorry, I'm just closing a few things to see if it cools it, or if it makes it a bit less exhausting for it. So I'm all about Adobe everything.
Yeah. Yep. So Adobe Premiere Pro, After Effects, Audition for audio, and well, that's what I use for the podcast is Audition, and
I give away a lot of my audio now, so I do the basics in Premiere, but anything complex, I have a sound designer now as well.
Yep. Daily Grind asks, do you pay up front or after, and what's a good budget to stick with? What do you think?
Well, I do everything. I never do upfront anything, but that's also because I haven't had an issue with any clients yet. So once that happens, I told myself I need to think about doing it a bit differently. But with us, we always do it after the fact.
Yeah, Julia keeps a running tally of everything as she does for us, including thumbnails and edits. And then at the end of the month, she sends me an invoice, and then I just pay it. So.
Yeah, I use a time tracker. So whenever I start the time tracker and I stop. Yeah, and that's how we count that.
A couple of questions kind of from Simply Mite and O'Neill Gerald and Kay Renee are all kind of asking the same thing. Like, how do you know when you're ready to hire an editor? At what point should you hire one? When is a good time to hire one? I would say that like whenever you have an idea of something you want to do in your channel that could boost revenue, but you need some time freed up, make an investment into yourself, into your channel, and hire someone just like I did temporarily, like 3 months or 6 videos or whatever you want to do, in order to like give you the capacity to work on that thing. So for me, that thing that I did that went like did 5,000 or 15,000 in the first month. I knew like I had this idea called Video Labs in my head that I wanted to do, and I didn't have any time to actually put it together and pull it off. And so I was like, hey, I'm going to hire this editor to do that. I'm going to put Video Labs together, which is another revenue generating thing I can create. And then I want to see if that sells and what that process looks like and everything. And it did. And that's when I learned that like I need to free up more of my time to work on my business rather than my business. So you could do it that way. Now, some creators are just like, I am just paying for quality of life. I don't have another business thing I'm working on. I am just so tapped out, and I am willing for this to be a loss, or I'm willing to just not make as much money or whatever in order to be able to spend more time with my family or more time sleeping or something. One of the things that I appreciate about working with like someone like Julia, who's in Austria and I'm here in the US, is on sometimes if we have like a big time crunch, I'm like, here, Julia, I go to bed and I wake up the morning and she has a draft done already, which we don't do that hardly ever. But I think we did that more in the early days than we do now. Now that we have them, now we've learned to put buffer into place and have a little bit more time.
There's also times in between when I have more projects where that kind of works out. When we're just sort of working a bit more short term, but at the moment we're caught up again, so that's good.
Yeah. So I don't know I think when you're ready. It's a financial investment, whether you're investing in the time for you or freedom for you or whatever it is. That's a decision you'll have to make. And my channel is relatively small when I was doing it, but I knew I had so it's not a channel size, and it's maybe not even a revenue thing. It's just kind of like maybe a quality of life and business type of decision that you got to make there. So
I think there's also something to be said about vision. What's the vision for your business or your channel or whatever it is? If you just want to keep doing what you're doing, then maybe you will never need an editor. But if you want to grow, if you want to do more videos or higher quality videos, or you want to grow your business, then it's about keeping that vision in mind and thinking about what does it take. And you can't do everything if you want to grow by yourself forever, and then that goes into play. What else do you want to do with your time? And you still need quality time for yourself as well. But I think vision. What's your vision for it?
Yeah. It's good. I am a fixer. Ask, is there any benefit to having a video editor that is local as opposed to remote? I told you one benefit, having someone who's remote, if they're on the other side of the world or different time zones, sometimes that works to your benefit, but it also makes it harder to like connect. Like for Julia right now, it's going on 9 o'clock at night and it's 3 p.m. for me. So that, and I can do that because you have a clock right behind you. So I didn't even have to do any math. But yeah, so that's one benefit. But I don't know, what would you say, Julia, are some of the pros and cons of local versus remote?
Well, I definitely wanted someone in person because, again, that's part of my vision. I want to grow my business with a team around me. And for me, the big disadvantage was that I didn't want to keep on working by myself all the time anymore. That just drove me crazy, and that's also why I wanted someone that I knew I would get along with really well. Because if we spend that much time together, everything's got to be right about it. So, and it's not just about the company itself, like just not being alone, but it's also about being able to talk directly to each other, show each other stuff, and being side by side. The communication is quite easy.
Yeah, I tried to find someone local first, but that didn't really work out. I didn't really find anyone that was a good fit. And then that's when I started going to my personal network and then ended up on Upwork eventually and found Julia. But there are the benefits of having a local one, besides what Julia said. I think like one thing that I'm bumping into personally is most of my team, out of the 10 of us, all of us are in the U.S. except for 2 people. My personal assistant, Grace, is in the Philippines, and Julia, who's in Austria. And now that there's 10 people on the team, it takes a lot more intentionality to build relationships and to connect and to communicate. And sometimes like there's people who don't even interact with each other because they're just working on different things. And so I have, for my business, need to start figuring out how do I bring people together at least for like an annual retreat or something, like we all get together for a week and do some vision casting meetings and things like that. And it's just harder when you have to bring everyone together like once in a while. When you have Julia, who's got to leave everything over in Austria to make a trip to the U.S., or doesn't have to, but if she chose to join us, like that type of thing, or Grace from the Philippines, as opposed to if you're all in the U.S., it's like an hour and a half, 2-hour flight to anywhere, almost anywhere, since I'm kind of centrally located, and it just makes it a little bit easier. So that depends on, again, what Julia said, your vision, like long term, right? Are you going to try to build this into a team that you want to eventually bring together? Then starting with people locally would make that easier in the long run. But there are advantages to working with someone remotely, and I haven't found that the downsides to that have steered me away from that at all. So, in fact, everyone on our team is remote. It's just that, Lara is my producer. She's here in Cincinnati, but everyone else is outside of Cincinnati. But even Lara works as if she's remote, so we don't get together and have meetings or anything. So you can do it. Yeah, just use the right tools and just be very intentional about it. It can work. Julia, if someone wanted to work with you, if they wanted to reach out to you and be like, hey, Julia, I want to do a 6 video trial or a 3-month trial or something, like, and just kind of have you do some work for them, where should they go?
I think, we're currently working on our website because since Leah came on full time, we have a lot more time to spare. So I'm currently working on that. So the website is probably the best way to go. Do you have the link down there?
Mm-hmm.
So
the link in the description or show notes if you're watching later.
Yeah, cool. So that's Studio Lilam. I'm not going to spell that out. You've got it in the description. It's a bit under construction at the moment, but I'm hoping to have the proper thing up in the next couple of days, to have a bit more new stuff to look at as well. But that's the best way to contact me, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of editors out there, but if you're doing YouTube, there are some things you need to train them in specifically in terms of like they have to start thinking about retention as opposed to editing for TV, which is how most of them have been trained. Or they're like wedding videographers or something, and they can take a good 2 minutes to kind of build up to an intro or something. But as you guys know on YouTube, you got to hook their attention really fast. It's got to be really tight there, high value, connect with the title and thumbnail, the end screens. Like you might have to teach them what an end screen is, things like that. So you can totally get someone who is never edited for YouTube before and just teach them those things, and it'd be great. I like working with Julia, and because we've worked really hard on a lot of that stuff, and so someone like Julia who's already familiar with how to edit for YouTube could be great, especially if you have like an educational channel in nature. She would be, and you want some motion graphics and someone who can explain complex ideas with simple graphics and things like that. It's been great for me. So. Yeah,
it's been great for me too, by the way. Thanks for, I'm happy that I got to learn so much from you.
Yeah, it's been fun. Well, I remember actually, I don't know if you remember this conversation, but I was a little bit like, oh, Laura just put the link in the chat. Thank you, Laura. I remember like one of our first conversations, I was like, why does a PhD in digital design want to work with a YouTuber? Do you remember what you said? Because I do.
I don't remember what I said. No,
I said like, you could be doing anything. You could be teaching this on a collegiate level or something. Why do you want to work with like a little YouTuber? And you said, it's like, oh no, like YouTube's the future. That's the direction everything is heading in. Like if I would need to learn this anyway, so I might as well get paid to learn it. We're editing your videos. And I was like, okay, that's a good answer. I'll take that. And
well, yeah. I mean, I was all about online video, and it seemed like so many people were still behind on that, and now all these businesses are growing that are mainly about YouTube. So definitely, yeah. And I've been working on making that our expertise as well.
Yeah, well, you do a good job. So if you guys want to reach out to her, you can. It's not sponsored or anything, but I just wanted her to give you guys good value here, and told her I'd let her do that. And so you can work with her and Leah too, and get just the same expertise I get to use every day here in my business with them too. So you guys check that out, and we will be back next week for another Video Creators Podcast episode and live stream. If you're listening to the podcast, we do them. The live streams are every Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. We'd love to have you join us for our next one. Or if you are here in the live stream and you haven't subscribed to the podcast, I do have exclusive content that goes there. It doesn't always get live streamed. So check us out on SoundCloud, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Spotify. Wherever you listen to us, just search for Video Creators and you'll find us. And if you don't mind leaving us a review, it would be very helpful. Give us a little feedback rating, and that really does help us reach more people. So appreciate you guys hanging out with us, and we will see you guys again next week.